It's processing. And do I see us? Not quite yet. Okay.
I do.
Well, I'm going to see us here.
Uh,
Is it 3:00 yet? Okay. This is waiting for us. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, here we go. Hey, hey.
hey, there we go.
All right, let's see if that's working. Okay, there we go. Welcome to Fanboy Planet, the live stream, the unplugged Derek edition. And I am so honored, blessed that Lauren Shields, longtime friend. Let's see, how many hyphens do I give you? Author, activist, uh, minister,
Yeah, huh?
actor, improviser.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know what else you want to
I
add.
think, I think that's it. I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, it wrote a book. I guess this came out last 2 summers ago, right? So
2018. Yeah.
2018. Okay. Wrote a book called The Beauty Suit. And wait, I know I have this here. How my year of religious modesty made me a better feminist. And
Yeah.
boom, I can hold this up. I have my copy right here. I know that doesn't necessarily prove that I wrote it, but I read it, but I did. Ooh, in stereo. So anyway, and it's a really interesting book, and I've been dying to find a way to kind of have the topic that would intersect with your book and fandom,
Mhm.
and realized that after seeing Birds of Prey that it was a perfect intersection. So, or near
Yes.
perfect. So
Yeah.
anyway, Lauren, without further ado then, and by the way, her website is scrolling down below us. Explain what the premise of your book is. What is the beauty suit?
Okay. Well, the beauty suit itself as a concept is all of the extra stuff that women have to do in order to leave the house that men don't. So things like makeup, hair, restrictive clothing, uncomfortable shoes. It's all part of a costume that women sort of have to wear in order to exist in the world. And a lot of folks argue that it's voluntary, and it's technically voluntary, but if you don't wear it, people notice, especially in the professional world. Um, the premise of my book was that I had lived in New York for a little while. I had seen modestly dressed women who wore makeup, but they like covered their hair or they wore ankle length skirts and stuff. And in my first year of seminary, oh goodness, there was a big crash. I guess it was here. The hazards of doing interviews from home.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I was in seminary and I had a class on women in church history, and there was a woman who had lived in Iran for a little while and talked about wearing the hijab. And she said that covered American Muslim women, the ones who choose to cover, many of them do it as a feminist statement. And I was like, what? You can't be a feminist and cover your hair. That's ridiculous. Yes, you can. So the premise of my book was that for 9 months, I covered my hair, my arms, and my legs, and I stopped wearing makeup. I took off the beauty suit as much as I possibly could. So this book is about those 9 months, and it's also about I'm trying to explore the gray area between, on the one hand, you have religious conservatism, where it's the female body is shameful and should be covered, and on the other hand, you have pop feminism, where it's like being overtly sexual is the same as being liberated. Yay! There's got to be something in between. So, yeah.
All right, and I think to some extent, though, in your book, you're acknowledging that there can be those ends of the spectrum. It's just right in the middle. So, and one thing that you and I were chatting about just a bit ago was it's interesting that your book's time has come in some ways, because through this, through the quarantine that we are in at various stages of acceptance. I am, I'm going between grief, anger, and bargaining. Is no, I'm kidding. But yeah, is that you see a lot of people really are. There's this weird kind of relaxing because everybody's from home. Like we're doing these interviews from our own homes, and that the beauty suit, as I was understanding it, is kind of dropping. People aren't putting it on. And I say people because I do think that to some extent, men have a little bit of it, but I got what you're saying is, we do not get held by the same standards at all.
No.
No, I don't want to be like, well,
No.
Lauren, I put on a lot of makeup. It takes a lot of work to look this.
I know.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, but I mean, if you felt that, because you are doing, as you just mentioned, you are doing regular on Sundays. You're ministering
Mm-hmm.
to your
Online.
congregation. You
Eh,
know.
eh. Yeah, it's weird because so the suit has taken on a whole other meaning because you don't technically have to wear it from like here down. You don't technically have to wear it if you're on Zoom at all, although most women that I know do put on makeup and do their hair and do something just so that they don't look tired or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the ways that for me, I keep a sense of normalcy is by like putting on pants and makeup in the morning. It's one of the ways that I think to myself, okay, now there is a separate time between bedtime when I'm on my sweatpants and now work time when I'm in my work
Mm-hmm.
clothes. So it's really the importance of appearance and the maintenance that we all do, women more than men, of course, is taking on a whole other set of something.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, as I say, we've got the beauty suit is available on Amazon.com, and you have, before we get into the geeky part of our conversation, that you have a website, laurenjshields.com. I'm scrolling that across the bottom here. Do you what if people go to the website? Was it more thoughts, deeper articles? Because this started, you wrote for Salon, right? You wrote a piece for Salon.com. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
your year of modesty did not, your experiment, but the book had its genesis from that.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I wrote a book. I'm sorry. I wrote an article for Salon in like 2013. Yeah, 2013. 2013. Just for $150 because I needed $150, and it was about the experiment, and it caused this huge firestorm. People were furious with me, and other people were really into it. So that's how the book kind of came about. Is I had a lot of people approach me and say, "Are you going to write a book about this?" And I went, "Totally." And then I did.
Yeah. Okay. And I should say that if people are watching the live stream, people who are watching the live stream, there is a comment stream on the side of YouTube that you can write in questions if you have as we talk. Before we get into the meat of this, because I realized the last time I interviewed somebody, I forgot to say that, and then somebody emailed me afterwards and said I had a question and you didn't get to it. I went, oh Lord. Okay. So yeah. So it was a lot geekier. It was about John Carter of Mars. So yeah, we were talking with the Edgar Rice Burroughs people. So anyway, let's talk about Birds of Prey. So, this is when I saw that movie and I reviewed it, I had to be as spoiler free as possible. But I was done, I like the press coordinators afterwards, like, what do you think? And I said, this one poor woman, I just unloaded all this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, like it's fighting back against Zack Snyder. You can tell like the time it finally becomes like in Zack Snyder style. Blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm so sorry, but you're the only person right now I know I can tell what I think, So and of course I did, a week later, I'm like, okay, Lauren and I need to have a conversation once she's seen it, and then I watched it again a couple of weeks ago, said, yep, everything that I thought is still resonating with me and getting this. And so, what I saw was, it is, whether intended or not by Warner Brothers, almost a repudiation of Joker. Definitely, obviously, of Suicide Squad, not to be confused with The Suicide Squad, which will be coming out later someday when we're all allowed to go to movie theaters again. With Harley Quinn, with Margot Robbie as Harley again. What I noticed right off the bat is all the women, though of course the film focuses on women, but every man in this film treats women as as objects, people to be owned, to be controlled, never really treated as humans until, and I think we can be a little spoiler, it's been on demand for a while and so forth, that the owner of the Chinese restaurant who rents the apartment to Harley up above, even he sells her out because but it is for money. So she becomes a commodity. But he's the only person she trusts. I guess she's left with the guy that makes the sandwiches, but that's about it. He might be the only person that sees her as a human, or the only man that sees her as Harley and doesn't, not a. And when she begins the film, she's trading on that role as she's the Joker's girlfriend. She's getting away with a lot, and it's interesting because I'll go comics wise, and for all the geekiness that we have shared, I don't know how deep your comics knowledge is, but she's a character that started in Batman the Animated Series as the Joker's girlfriend, and absolutely this totally dysfunctional. And I didn't get to see that many episodes. I was already working and missing it in the afternoons, and so forth. And I was doing comedy sports at night, and that's how you and I met years later. But back in the early '90s. But I was running the high school league, and I had students that loved Harley Quinn, and how these people loved her, and totally. But they were seeing that these teen girls were like idolizing this crazy dysfunctional woman who was abused all the time by the Joker. And it's interesting. I interviewed Bruce Timm a few years ago when they did a Batman Harley Quinn animated film later, just a couple years ago, a full-length animated film, and he had no idea that she had become the icon that she was, because he's just busy making cartoons. He's not paying attention to pop culture. What's been happening with his creations. He's absorbing other people's. So she went into comics, and they've evolved her more in the comics. And so, but in Suicide Squad, she was very objectified. Apparently, there's a longer director's cut that I've been told is better than the film that was released theatrically. But even so, it's still getting to, she even exists as Harley Quinn because the Joker dumped her in the same vat of chemicals that he was in. And so this is, her emancipation, as the subtitle says. And then, and so I'll open with what I sent you as the last question. We'll start. Do you think was she emancipated in this film? How did and how does your theories of feminism and beauty suit apply through that?
Yeah, I do think she is emancipated in that she allows herself to be a whole human being apart from whomever she's dating. She, when she opens the story, she makes a big deal out of the fact that I'm telling this story. I'm going to tell it the way I want to tell it. And with Batman the Animated Series, she was, excuse me, she was idolized. She showed up, but she was one of the few female characters, and she happened to be aligned with the most powerful person other than Batman. So yeah, she was appealing, but that pathology was really mixed in. So in Birds of Prey, I would say that she becomes emancipated. Again, just because of how she thinks of herself, not because there are men going, you need to get back in the kitchen, but because she's like, okay, I hear you saying that, and no, not gonna. So yeah, I would say that she is, and so I watched it last night again, and I took a whole bunch of notes on like everybody's outfits and how everybody looks and everything, and and as I'm also a boxing instructor, which I don't know if I've ever told you that, but I spend a lot.
I did know that, yes. So that's why I've not. I'm careful. I don't want to challenge you too much. Yeah.
Okay. Remotely is why we're doing this.
Yeah.
But I was watching her, punch and kick the crap out of everybody and everything, and she's wearing really short shorts, and all I could think was, gosh, that's got to be really uncomfortable when you slide her along the floor in those shorts. But at the same time, she also had suspenders. She also the way that as she's emancipating herself, you can watch the way that her Jokerness decreases. She cuts off, she cuts her hair, which is the cliche, right? But she cuts off the pink and the blue, mostly. So how her emancipation intersects with my ideals of the beauty suit and how power and beauty intersect. There weren't a lot of, major costume changes or anything, not like when Elsa unties her hair and is like, I'm powerful and sexy now, and also no clothes, even though it's freezing. Cold never bothered her anyway.
No, exactly.
Anyways,
I can promise away if you'd like. I could do that whole thing in mine.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Uh, yeah, I don't know. There was so many more female characters that I could look at and who were covered. I was like, thank you. They're just being people. Harley wears shorts because she's kind of zany and weird, and that's how she feels comfortable. But not every woman in the film. We don't get all these close-ups of butts like constantly, you know?
Well, and that's one thing I was going to say. So I dug out that the huntress in this is portrayed in a very loose, functional costume, as opposed to, I think this should be visible. This is one of her first appearances in comics in the 70s, and I'll just, yeah. Very typical, different time, different person. And I do want to say that, like, even in the early 90s, I don't think we were having when Harley was created, that we were having the conversations that we're having now.
No.
But and Huntress then in the 70s was actually originally Bruce Wayne's daughter with Catwoman.
Oh.
So, and she's portrayed that way as recently as the television series Birds of Prey. But this version is, her attitude is she's got the vengeance when she became Helena Bertinelli because of weird comic stuff that it makes people's heads explode when you talk about continuity and why they had to change that because anyway, but I do recommend for the fans, I've recommended this twice. This is a great hardcover, All-Star Comics, only legends live forever. And you see Earth 2's Batman's funeral. So yeah, they could do that. These are the 1940s heroes. And that's why. Okay. I did get into the weird geeky stuff. And at any time you can say too much, McCaw, you've gone too far. People know how to do that. But in the film Birds of Prey, she has had this vengeance plan, and even though she's good at it, it's also clear that she's not as good as she wants to be at it, and she's not super comfortable with the role. I mean, my favorite running gag there is the trying to establish herself as huntress when people want to call her crossbow killer, which I think in the real world is like that. How do you get branded? They solved that on CW's The Flash, as there's one guy who always names every villain, but and that's what sticks. But it is interesting that she's gone from costumes that in the 70s, my God, 70s comics were costumes for women were not functional in real world way as at all. And I think she did appear in Legends of the Superheroes, a Hanna-Barbera live action thing that's embarrassing and everybody knows not to. And the actor who played her never did anything else again. But she did make the costume look good. But they never had her do anything reasonable with it. And then of course when we get to Black Mask, Roman Sionis and Dinah Lance, who, again, from a geek perspective, one of the things I love the most is she's the second Black Canary and will never meet the first. But that also goes back to her comics origin. I won't get too deep, but people watching will know that she was she's the daughter of the Earth 2 Dinah Lance, and that's why she could be younger and so forth. But that she doesn't want to use the power, that if you don't know who Black Canary actually is, that they hold off on this. Some people know. I used to teach at an all-girls school, and the religious studies class would talk about how Little Mermaid Ariel had lost her voice in order to get her prince. She lost her agency, and this film reverses. So I don't want this to just be. Lauren, would you validate every one of my feminist theories of the film? But there's Dinah, who resists it, but can fight all this, and she's just seen as the driver. She's the singer. She's the decoration in Black Mask's life. But she does finally find her voice literally in her power of the sonic stream, aka the canary cry.
Right.
Throw anything in here. Like I said, I don't really want to dominate.
No, I'm just thinking about how nice it is to have a film where there are enough female characters that there can be a huntress who's awesome at what she does and is also kind of awkward and not sort of comfortable with it, and then you can have the Black Canary who is not comfortable with her voice but has it. Because usually you have one female character and she represents all women and she wears tight things and she is supremely confident and she is probably with the main character, right? So the fact that we have all of these different women, it means that there's space for women like me, who I'm good at this, but I'm awkward at that. Women like my friend, who is a little bit crazy and kind of a jerk, but also gets things done, you know? So that's what I was thinking about as you were talking. It was just, it's nice to have, when you have more women, you can have real women. You know?
Well, as one of the writers of the comic Birds of Prey commented, Gail Simone, one of my favorite writers, she pointed out on Facebook that Margot Robbie, after they did Suicide Squad, Warner Brothers was very excited, signed her on for a production deal, and she could produce whatever film she wanted, and she wanted to stay with Harley. And Gail's point was, as if I know her very well, but I will say she's, Gail Simone's point is that she could have just done a Harley Quinn solo film, and instead she also steeped herself in the comics, so she knew Harley is not a member of Birds of Prey, but crosses paths with them often in comics. And she wanted to produce a Birds of Prey film. She wanted to bring the female superhero group together on screen. And, and then she will be in the Suicide Squad, as where they're just going to pretend Suicide Squad didn't happen. When you think about, what you just said was valid too. In Suicide Squad, Harley was front and center, and they do make that joke in Birds of Prey that she, in the trunk, has the Daddy's Little Monster t-shirt that was very sexualized and minimized. And she's like, I'm just going to save it, put it off to the side. Like, there might be a place, but that's not right now. But the other female characters were, you had Amanda Waller, who is just, boom, almost asexual, but at least strong. And Enchantress, I don't know what the hell Enchantress was in that film. A character who worked very well in the original comics, and on film really didn't. So this was an evolution forward. I was going to go with Renee Montoya, a character also created for Batman the Animated Series, who became very popular in the comics. And she was in Gotham Central, was an ongoing just about the cops, and that's where she became really popular in comics. And it's currently The Question in comics as well. An interesting arc for her, again shown as being in kind of a male-dominated industry profession as police force, where men are constantly taking the credit. And so naturally, she's going to work outside the law now and become the leader of Birds of Prey. It's kind of interesting. Now, again, I'm going to go deep, because Cassandra Cain, the girl, who is literally now, her identity in comics is Orphan, but she was Batgirl at one point, and can barely speak. And she's trained. She speaks in violence. She knows martial arts in the comics, and is complete. She is a creature of just action. And it is kind of interesting to see that's the Cassandra Cain on film now is so wildly different than what she is in the comics. But again, interesting, because she's just an ordinary teen girl with a really crappy home life and a really crappy situation and a logical thing. So
I love that. I knew that Margot Robbie produced Birds of Prey, but like, for me as a woman watching the credits, seeing the first 3 above the line credits were all women, I went, it made me so happy. Not because I'm looking for some sort of weird revolution where women come to dominate men, but because I want some superhero movies, man. Like, I want to watch somebody kick some butt. I want to watch somebody emancipate themselves and work with other women, and then have those other women like each other, but not maybe like each other, like have real, actual female friendships that are not based on anything that the dudes do around them, they had to come together because the Black Mask was attacking all of them at once. But there's that scene afterwards in the taqueria where they're all having tacos. And they're kind of bonding, and it's weird and awkward, and it's awesome. But that's how women are when we are with each other. People, we don't.
So how would you think you take this back? I'll spring a gotcha on it. It was, a lot of criticism, and when I say criticism, it's the small but vocal minority on the internet of men who are like, "Why do you have to? Superheroes should be this," or there were steps forward in Captain Marvel. Well,
Sure.
that was the one that got levied a lot of criticism, and yet mysteriously made over $1 billion.
Well,
Although I walked out of Birds of Prey thinking that's more the movie that I wish Captain Marvel had been, because I liked Captain Marvel, but I didn't think it was a great movie. And what kept it from being a great movie was that it was a prequel chapter in a different epic.
yes.
It really was not its own story. And some of the Marvel movies work that way very well, and some don't. And that was one that I thought that hurt it.
It felt like a setup. It felt like one long setup. Yeah.
Yeah, but an interesting character. Your take on that, in the Beauty Suit too, because I think when she showed up in Avengers Endgame,
Mm-hmm.
people complained like her hair was no longer long. She had the short functional, which she does in the comics too. Same thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I tried to watch Captain Marvel in preparation for this interview, but something went wrong with iTunes, so I wasn't able to watch it. So I haven't seen it in a while. I'll be totally honest, I haven't seen it in a while. But I do remember thinking, oh, good, she cut her hair. Because, like, as somebody who has had short hair, like, it actually makes a lot more sense when you're kicking butt to have short hair. It just does. So what's your question? Like, what objections?
Well, no, I'm just thinking. Well, people were just, you had to have your woman's hair after so many films that were, that were male dominated. It's like, same thing happened. The small but vocal minority is people that are just saying, again, we don't want politics, we don't want identity, we don't want comic book movies to be about something. We just want them to be fun and so forth. And I think, to me, like, I go to them. I went through the dark years when, the best we had were the Tim Burton movies were okay for their time, and now, I'm excited that comic book movies are deeper and can talk about a lot of different things. Like I love Black Panther. Filmmaker Terry Gilliam very famously does not, infamously does not, which is a shame because I love Terry Gilliam, but Terry, you're wrong, and that's all I'll say, just, politely. And and before that, Wonder Woman. I loved Wonder Woman, and I loved having a film that, I took my daughter, that every time, like, I read a comic that is great for girls, or see a film like this, is I wish this had come out 10 years earlier, so I could have shared it with my daughter. Now she's 21. She's not going to hang out and go to the movies with me, or, comics. So it's just, I wish when that this stuff had existed before, so I don't know your thought on, I guess what I'm trying to get at is Birds of Prey feels revolutionary, and yet it shouldn't have, because I can point to other films that were in the vein.
Right.
But
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, when you say, why do comic book movies have to be about something? When people use that defense, they're all about something. It's just that you didn't know because they were about you. When they're not about you, like, it's about something else.
No, Lauren. It should all be about me. I think if all this is what's going on in the world has taught me anything, it's that, I can create my own little world and stay in it, because literally I'm limited to 800 square feet most of the time.
That's what I love about where these sort of big tentpole movies are going, especially the ones that are based on graphic novels and comics, is that these stories that we tell about ourselves, they're how we define ourselves as a culture. And if we keep telling ourselves the same story about troubled rich white guy wreaks vengeance on everybody because something happened to him.
Okay. And I'm realizing, so we're having this conversation on what would have been Free Comic Book Day, which usually coincides with the opening of a big superhero movie. They swear it's coincidental, but it's a good time because it's it's a great cross-pollination. Yesterday, Friday, May 1st, would have been the opening day of Black Widow. So Scarlett Johansson's prequel, because it's got to be a prequel, because I assume she is staying dead cinematically, but this is going back in time and telling her story. So we are seeing more of theirs. There's a hope on the Marvel side. All the women in the Marvel films, the women actors, have said that they wanted to have. There's a Marvel comic called A-Force, which is all women on an Avengers team that is all women. So they figured there were enough You could have Captain Marvel, you can have Valkyrie, you could have Black Widow, or if it is, as I suspect, setting up Black Widow's kind of sister to take that role, that
Right.
you could have her in there, and there are more characters. Ms. Marvel's coming to Marvel Plus. I don't know in what form. I'm dying for Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur to somehow show up, but that's not going to happen. It's too expensive. But so what are you looking forward to in pop culture when things perhaps go to normal? Like what you're talking about comic book, but we are talking graphic novels. Is there one that you are, from your geek credentials, that you say, like, I'd love this to get adapted, or
Oh, that's it's kind of you to open up the floor to me in that way. Honestly, it's been in the last several months, things have been so upheavally
Mm-hmm.
that I'm pretty much just like, okay, what do I need to do to get through the next 3 months? Like,
Okay, sorry. Yes. Okay, fair enough.
Anything on the horizon?
Fair enough. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, how about a beauty suit film adaptation? If Hollywood came calling,
yeah.
the narrative could be interesting.
I think honestly, I think it could. I think 9 months of watching somebody try and figure out why all of a sudden young white guys don't seem to see you anymore would be interesting. Have you seen What We Do in the Shadows?
I love What We Do in the Shadows.
Love What We Do in the Shadows. There's that scene where I think Nadja makes a new vampire, and
Beanie Feldstein. Yeah.
Yeah, and her character, her superpower kind of is that she disappears.
That was brilliant.
It just gave me goosebumps, because that's how it feels a lot of the time for young women that age. So I don't know if she would get her own spin-off show, but as we're talking, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I kind of want to hear more about her.
Well, she was busy, so if you watch the second season so far, that is why she's only referenced. And there are now vampire hunters, including her college roommate, because she disappeared, but Beanie Feldstein became too popular and too busy. Not too popular. She was willing to come back, but they couldn't fit filming into her schedule.
Oh, what happened? Oh, bummer.
So yeah, kind of maybe season 3. I'm hoping, because there better be a season 3, because I love that show. So I just I'll sum up here. The Beauty Suit is available at all your finer booksellers. You can probably if you have, as I always say, an independent bookstore that you support that can order or can ship to you, do that absolutely, and see if they carry The Beauty Suit. Otherwise, yes, it is available on Amazon, and I will have a link on the Fanboy Planet page as well. Do mention that we are affiliated with Amazon.com. Therefore, any purchase you make through Fanboy Planet or through the search box on Amazon can potentially generate revenue for Fanboy Planet. So I'm legally bound to make that the thing. If you have any comments as you're watching this after the fact, and let me just double check. I think people are just spellbound. That if you have any, you watch this video on Fanboy Planet or on YouTube afterwards, by all means, you can write into editor@fanboyplanet.com. Any questions, comments, compliments, commentary, criticism, write in that way. You can follow Fanboy Planet on Facebook. You, however, are now just Instagram social media. Is that I'm sorry, Insta?
Insta, IG, and no, I do have a Facebook page. The name of my experiment was the Modesty Experiment. So if you go on on Facebook, and you put in the Modesty Experiment, you'll find me.
Okay, there you go. I said you can follow Fanboy Planet on Facebook and Twitter and Insta, all as Fanboy Planet. Let's see, is there anything else? And let me switch back to the banner. So we have your website, laurenjshields.com. And thank you so much for taking the time on a Saturday afternoon to have this conversation. And like I said, I've been dying to have. And I realized, we could do it in a coffee shop in normal times, but why not share it with other people on video? So here we are. So thank you very much. Once again, this is Lauren Shields. I'm Derek McCaw, editor-in-chief of fanboyplanet.com, and saying good afternoon and reminding you to use your powers for good. Thank you. And I'm going to end the broadcast, which they probably now heard that.